The day started like any other. People went about their lives, some at work, others in schools, markets, and on the streets. The sun shone brightly, and the world seemed peaceful, but it was the calm before a storm unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. A dark, silent shadow lingered in the back of people's minds, as if something was on the verge of breaking the tranquility. At first, there was nothing. No warning, no sudden sirens. Just a brief moment of serenity that would be shattered in an instant. Without any prior indication, the skies above Earth suddenly darkened, like a curtain falling over the sun. A low hum filled the air, growing louder and louder until the entire atmosphere seemed to vibrate with the power of an unstoppable force. In the blink of an eye, the heavens were ripped apart. A massive alien fleet, the Exalcorians, appeared in the sky, descending with terrifying speed. The ships, unlike anything seen before, gleamed with sharp edges and were cloaked in a dark energy, pulsating with power. The sheer size of their warships sent waves of fear crashing over every city on Earth. Global communications exploded with panic. News outlets flooded with reports of a massive fleet descending from the heavens. People looked up in disbelief as a storm of ships blocked out the sun. Governments went into full crisis mode, scrambling to understand who these invaders were and why they had come. Military forces around the world mobilized, preparing for an attack, but nothing could prepare them for what was about to unfold. Alien warships hovered in orbit, scanning Earth with cold precision. The world's defenses, already stretched thin, stood no chance against the aliens' technological superiority. Countries' most advanced weapon systems were rendered useless as the invaders unleashed weapons of unimaginable power. Cities crumbled to the ground, people ran for their lives, and chaos quickly spread across the planet. The world was caught off guard. The alien assault had begun, and Earth was at its mercy. Yet, even in this time of despair, there was one thing that humanity had kept secret, something no one knew about. A hidden project that had been initiated years ago, designed to be a last resort for a planet under threat. Deep underground, far from the chaos unfolding above, something was stirring. The Human Zoo, a secret military base that housed the most advanced human warriors, was now humanity's last hope. The world's governments had no idea this project existed. It was built as a fail-safe, a force that had been trained in secret to fight back against alien invaders if the need ever arose. But now, with the Exalcorians wreaking havoc on the surface, the time had come to activate it. As the alien fleet continued to advance, a team of genetically enhanced human soldiers was activated. Hidden away in a remote underground base, they had been raised and trained specifically for a war that had never seemed possible until now. These soldiers were Earth's best-kept secret, enhanced with technology and abilities that far surpassed anything the average human could dream of. Yet, they had never fought a battle, until now. They were humanity's last line of defense, and the fate of the entire planet rested on their shoulders. Among them was Alex Carter, a seasoned military strategist who had been preparing for this moment his entire life. Alex was skeptical, unsure whether humans could defeat an enemy as powerful as the Exalcorians. After all, their technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever developed. How could they possibly stand a chance against an alien race capable of such destruction? But there was no time for doubt. The world was on the brink of collapse, and Alex knew that the responsibility fell on him and his team to make a stand. As the alien warships breached Earth's atmosphere, cities were reduced to rubble, and millions of people died in the blink of an eye. The world's last hope rested beneath the Earth's surface, in the Human Zoo. There, Alex and his team began preparing for the most important mission of their lives. Tension hung thick in the air. The silence of the underground base was deafening. The soldiers knew what was at stake, and their training kicked in as they donned their battle gear. The base hummed with activity as AI systems flickered to life, preparing their cloaking devices and weapon systems. There was no room for failure. The enemy was relentless, and time was running out. The fate of humanity was now in their hands. Above ground, Earth was crumbling, but beneath it, the human soldiers were preparing for war. The strange, unsettling calm that had settled over Earth now felt like the eye of the storm. As Alex looked at his team, the weight of what lay ahead hit him. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and humanity's chances of survival seemed slim. Yet there was a fire within him, a belief that no matter how impossible the odds were, humans had something that no alien race could ever understand: heart. As the alien fleet drew nearer, ready to strike, Alex's team silently moved into position. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the alien warships, disable their weapons, and strike back at the heart of the enemy. The team knew that there would be no second chances. The first wave of humans was ready to make history, or be wiped out in an instant. The countdown had begun. The fate of Earth was sealed in the coming hours. With nothing left to lose, the humans were about to take the fight to the invaders. The time for waiting was over. As the sky above Earth continued to burn with alien fire, the human zoo was ready to unleash its fury. As the alien fleet continued its destructive march across Earth's cities, there was an unknown underground world waiting to rise. Hidden beneath layers of security, deep in the bowels of the Earth, lay the human zoo. This facility, previously thought to be a strange and ominous place where humans were merely subjects of alien observation, held a much darker and more vital secret. It was not a zoo for humans. It was a breeding ground for Earth's last hope, the most powerful human soldiers ever created. For years, this facility had been the source of whispers, rumors, and speculation. The world's governments had no idea that beneath their feet, a team of humanity's finest was preparing for a war no one thought would come. These were not ordinary men and women. Some were elite soldiers, trained in every form of combat known to humankind, while others were brilliant scientists and engineers responsible for creating the very technology that would help defend Earth. From cloaking devices to advanced AI, the human zoo housed every weapon Earth could muster against an enemy beyond their wildest nightmares. And now, the time had come to unleash them. Alex Carter stood at the command center, eyes fixed on the monitors, every inch of his body coiled with tension. He had been preparing for this day, but even he could hardly fathom the scale of the battle ahead. As the team's leader, he knew that there would be no room for mistakes. The Exalcorians, a race of technologically superior beings, had come to wipe out humanity. They had invaded Earth with overwhelming force, but the human zoo was humanity's final defense, and it was now activated. But the Telcorians had learned of the facility's existence. Once they realized what it contained, they saw the human zoo as the only threat capable of stopping them. They immediately launched a full-scale assault on the underground base, sending wave after wave of ships to obliterate the soldiers before they could even rise to the surface. The alien invaders believed they could wipe out humanity's best hope in one fell swoop. However, the humans were ready. As the first wave of Salcorian ships neared the facility, the underground base came alive with activity. Soldiers rushed into position, and the sound of metal clashing against metal echoed through the halls as battle armor was locked into place. Cloaking devices hummed to life, rendering soldiers nearly invisible to the enemy's scanners. Advanced AI systems, originally designed to assist with research, now served as strategic planners, guiding the humans through the chaos of the incoming assault. Alex's team, made up of Earth's finest soldiers, knew the stakes. They had trained for years for this moment, but no one could have predicted the sheer scale of the invasion. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, every decision, every move would determine the future of humanity. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the aliens didn't: a deep understanding of survival and a will to fight for their home. The first clash came swiftly. The Salcorian ships launched a barrage of missiles at the human zoo's entrance, hoping to take out the soldiers before they even had a chance to retaliate. But the humans had prepared. As the missiles hit the facility's defenses, Advanced countermeasures activated. Explosions lit up the sky, but the base held strong. In the chaos, cloaked soldiers emerged from the shadows, ambushing the alien invaders with precision and deadly force. Alex led his team in a brutal, fast-paced guerrilla strike, targeting Salcorian soldiers in the cities and forests where they least expected it. They struck hard and fast, using the terrain to their advantage. The forests, once calm and serene, became a battleground where robots with advanced weaponry and cloaked soldiers moved in and out of the shadows, taking down enemies with brutal efficiency. The action was chaotic, unpredictable. One moment, a team of soldiers would be battling alien forces in an abandoned city street, and the next, they'd be in a dense forest, using the cover of trees to launch surprise attacks. The Salcorians, confident in their technological superiority, had underestimated the human capacity for innovation and resilience. They had no idea what they were up against. As the battle raged on, emotions ran high. The soldiers were not just fighting for their planet. They were fighting for each other. Bonner, a beloved member of the team, was one of the first to experience the horrors of this war up close. Bonner had been with Alex since the beginning of the project, a man known for his strength, loyalty, and unwavering sense of duty. His bond with the other soldiers was unbreakable. But on the front lines, everything changed. Bonner's team was cornered during a particularly intense firefight. The aliens had surrounded them, and there seemed to be no escape. In that moment, Bonner made a split-second decision that would cost him his life. With no regard for his own safety, he sacrificed himself, charging at the enemy to give his comrades a chance to escape. His death was a moment of pure heroism, but it was also a gut-wrenching loss for the team. As Bonner's final breath escaped his lips, Alex and the others were filled with a new sense of purpose. His sacrifice ignited an unrelenting fire in their hearts. They could not, and would not, let his death be in vain. The battle was no longer just about survival. It was about revenge, justice, and honoring the fallen. The team pressed on, fueled by the memory of their fallen comrade. The Salcorians had no idea what they had just unleashed. The human zoo had transformed from a hidden experiment to humanity's greatest weapon, and the aliens had made the fatal mistake of underestimating Earth's warriors. With every strike, every ambush, humanity was proving that it would never back down. As the day wore on, the fight became more desperate. The Salcorians were relentless, but the humans were proving that they could adapt, improvise, and survive. They had the power of humanity on their side, a power the Salcorians could never understand. It was a battle for the future of Earth, and humanity's warriors were not about to lose. The battle for Earth had reached a crucial point. The Salcorians, with their massive fleet and advanced technology, had underestimated humanity's will to fight. Despite the overwhelming force of the alien invaders, the humans, using the tools and tactics they had perfected in the depths of the human zoo, continued to strike back with remarkable precision. Every move they made was a calculated risk, but they were no longer just defending their planet. They were fighting for their survival. The cloak of invisibility, created by reverse-engineered alien tech, gave them a significant edge. The cloaked soldiers moved in the shadows, making it impossible for the Salcorians to track their movements. This technology, once thought to be the ultimate advantage of the alien forces, was now in the hands of Earth's finest warriors. One by one, they launched devastating surprise attacks on key Salcorian strongholds. Cities that had once been symbols of alien dominance were now battlegrounds where the invaders quickly realized that Earth's human soldiers were far from the weak prey they had thought. Every ambush, every hit-and-run tactic seemed to catch the Salcorians off guard, sending shockwaves through their ranks. The action on the ground grew more intense with every passing day. Close-quarters combat became a common occurrence. Humans, armed with high-tech weapons they had scavenged from the alien forces, clashed with Salcorian soldiers in brutal hand-to-hand fights. Advanced energy blades whizzed through the air, and the hum of plasma guns echoed through the ruins of cities. The once pristine landscapes were now scared by the sounds of battle. But it wasn't just the weapons that made the humans dangerous. It was their sheer tenacity and resilience. The Exalcorians, despite their superior technology, had not counted on the human ability to adapt and improvise. Stolen alien weapons were now being turned against their creators. Plasma rifles, once only used by the invaders, were now in the hands of the humans, who fought back with the fury of a species that refused to be wiped out. One of the most intense moments of the conflict came when Alex Carter and his team infiltrated an alien mothership. It was a bold and dangerous move, but it had to be done. The Exalcorians had long used their mothership as a base of operations, coordinating attacks and overseeing their military campaigns from high above the Earth. If they could strike the heart of the alien forces, they could turn the tide of the war. As the team made their way toward the mothership, cloaked and ready to strike, they were constantly on edge. Every step, every move, had to be perfectly timed. The stakes had never been higher. If they were detected, the entire mission would be compromised. But the humans moved with precision, using their cloaking technology to their advantage as they snuck past alien patrols and made their way to the core of the ship. Inside, they encountered fierce resistance from the Exalcorians, but the humans fought back with ruthless efficiency. The alien soldiers, who had once thought themselves untouchable, were now in a desperate fight for survival. The humans, who had once been seen as weak and insignificant, were proving to be far more dangerous than the Exalcorians could have ever imagined. The action was nonstop. In one moment, Alex was fighting off a group of Exalcorian soldiers in a narrow hallway, dodging plasma blasts and striking back with a combination of stolen alien weapons and human ingenuity. In the next, the team was racing toward the ship's control room, trying to disable the mothership's weapon systems and communications. Every corner they turned, every door they breached, brought them closer to victory or to death. It was the ultimate underdog story. Earth's humans, who had been on the brink of extinction, were now taking the fight to the heart of the alien invaders. The Exalcorians had once laughed at Earth's chances, but now they were learning the hard way that underestimating humanity had been their greatest mistake. Alex's team reached the control room, where they fought to disable the mothership's defenses. The battle was fierce, and several of his team members were injured, but they kept pushing forward. With the clock ticking down, Alex made a final desperate move. He reached the mothership's central core and planted a device that would cripple its operations, effectively rendering the alien forces on Earth disoriented and vulnerable. Just as the device activated, the entire ship shook, and alarms blared throughout the mothership. Alex and his team made their way to the escape pods, fighting off enemy forces along the way. The Exalcorians, thrown into chaos, tried to regroup, but it was too late. The humans had struck at the heart of their forces. As the team escaped in the last remaining pods, watching the mothership explode in the distance, a sense of disbelief washed over them. They had done it. Against all odds, they had achieved their first major victory in the war. But for Alex, the victory came with a heavy price. His bond with his comrades had deepened throughout the battle. And now, the weight of their fallen brothers and sisters weighed heavily on him. Bonner's death still haunted him, and the thought of losing anyone else in this fight was a constant source of pain. But with each victory, he made a vow to ensure that no more lives would be lost in vain. As the team returned to Earth, the news of their success spread like wildfire. The humans had struck back. The Exalcorians had been dealt a severe blow, and the tide of the war had shifted. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about winning. Earth had taken its first step toward reclaiming its future, and Alex and his team knew that there was still much to be done. But one thing was certain. They were no longer the underdogs. The war had only just begun, and humanity was ready to fight with everything they had. The momentum on Earth was changing. What started as a desperate fight for survival had now turned into a rallying cry. The humans, armed with advanced technology, tactical brilliance, and the relentless will to survive were starting to push back the seemingly unstoppable Xalcorians. The invaders, once certain of their victory, were now facing unexpected resistance, and humanity was proving itself to be far more capable than the aliens had ever anticipated. A breakthrough came when the humans unlocked a powerful AI system, one that had originally been developed for the Xalcorians. This AI, which the humans had captured during a covert mission, held secrets that could change the course of the war. As the system was carefully analyzed, it revealed key weaknesses in the alien forces' strategy. For the first time, the humans realized that the Xalcorians were not as infallible as they appeared. Their reliance on technology had become a major vulnerability. The AI showed the humans how to exploit these weaknesses. It highlighted gaps in the Xalcorian network, flaws in their command structure, and most importantly, a crucial dependence on their advanced machinery. The humans, once seen as primitive, were now armed with the knowledge of how to disable the very technology the aliens had once used to dominate them. It was a game changer. With this new advantage, the humans wasted no time in planning their next move. The stakes were higher than ever, and the humans knew that the time for a decisive strike had come. They launched a daring raid on an alien base located on a distant asteroid, a stronghold that had been a critical part of the Xalcorians' operations. This was not just an attack. It was a statement that Earth was no longer a planet to be trifled with. The visuals of the raid were nothing short of spectacular. As the human ships approached the asteroid, laser blasts lit up the dark void of space, creating a dazzling light show against the backdrop of distant stars. Fighter ships, both human and alien, weaved in and out of asteroids, narrowly avoiding collisions as they engaged in high-speed dogfights. The explosions of energy weapons and the trails of fire left in the wake of fighters created a chaotic yet beautiful spectacle of destruction. The humans fought with the fierce precision that had now become their trademark, and their ships moved like shadows, avoiding enemy detection and striking with deadly accuracy. On the surface of the asteroid, the humans infiltrated the alien base with a swift and brutal assault. The Xalcorians, caught off guard, scrambled to defend their position, but the humans were prepared. They used every advantage they had gained. Advanced weaponry, cloaking technology, and their newfound understanding of the aliens' weaknesses. The base, once thought to be an impenetrable fortress, was crumbling under the force of humanity's determination. The raid was a resounding success, but it came at a cost. As the battle raged on, the humans discovered that the alien forces were regrouping for one final assault. The Xalcorians, enraged by the loss of their base, were preparing to launch their last wave of attacks. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, and now they were bent on crushing them once and for all. Back on Earth, the final battle was about to unfold. The humans knew that this would be their last stand. The Xalcorians, with their vast fleet, were poised to deliver a final devastating blow. The full-scale invasion was coming, and the humans were the only line of defense. There was no turning back now. Earth had become the front line of the war, and every soldier, every fighter, would have to give everything they had to protect their planet. As the Xalcorian ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, the humans mobilized for the most critical battle yet. The ground shook as the massive warships broke through the clouds, unleashing a barrage of weapons that tore through cities and military installations. The planet seemed to tremble under the weight of the invasion. It was a fight for survival, and there was no room for hesitation. Despite the overwhelming force of the alien invasion, the humans fought with everything they had. They had learned from their past battles, and now they were using their knowledge of the Xalcorians' weaknesses to their advantage. They launched coordinated strikes, using guerrilla tactics and high-tech weapons to take down the alien ships one by one. The humans didn't have the numbers or the resources of the Xalcorians, but they had something far more powerful: the will to protect their home. Ethan nodded slowly, as if he understood exactly what she was going through. I can't pretend to know what it's like for you, but I do know that, You don't have to carry this alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. Caliph looked up at him, meeting his gaze. There was sincerity in his eyes, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a small spark of hope. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't have to keep running from her past. Maybe it was okay to trust someone again. I don't know if I can trust anyone, she said, her voice trembling slightly. But I'll try. For now. Ethan smiled, a reassuring, kind smile that made her feel a little less alone. That's all anyone can ask for. Trust takes time. You don't have to rush it. Just take things one step at a time. Caliph took a deep breath, feeling the weight on her chest ease just a little. Trusting Ethan was still a big step, but maybe, just maybe, she was ready to take that first step. The rest of the morning passed in quiet conversation. Caliph told Ethan a little more about her tribe, about her powers, and what had happened that led to her exile. Ethan listened carefully, never judging, never pushing her to reveal more than she was ready to share. For the first time, she felt like someone was actually hearing her, not just listening to her words but understanding them. When they were done eating, Ethan stood up and began packing up his camp. We'll need to keep moving soon, he said. It's not safe to stay in one place for too long. Caliph nodded, rising to her feet as well. She wasn't sure where they were going next, but she knew that with Ethan by her side, she didn't feel as lost as she had before. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone in this world as she had thought. As they packed up the last of the supplies, Caliph found herself looking at Ethan with a new sense of respect. He was different from anyone she had met before. He didn't judge her for her powers. He didn't fear her. And for some reason, that made her feel like she could trust him. Even though everything about this situation was unknown, there was one thing that felt certain. Ethan was someone she could rely on. Where are we heading? Caliph asked, as they both began walking away from the camp. Ethan looked at her, his eyes focused ahead. I don't know yet, but wherever we go, I'll make sure you're safe. We'll figure it out together. Caliph felt a small smile tug at her lips. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like she might be able to face it. Not alone, but with someone who cared. Caliph had hoped that, after a few days of peace, the worst of her troubles were behind her. She had come to believe that with Ethan by her side, she might find some stability, a chance to heal from the scars of her past. But as the days passed and they ventured deeper into the dense forest, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The tension in the air was palpable, as if the forest itself knew that danger was closing in. Ethan noticed it too. His keen instincts had already sensed that they were being watched, even though they had taken great care to keep their movements quiet and inconspicuous. Every night, he set up extra traps around their camp, but every morning, they found them triggered or disturbed, as if someone, or something, was deliberately tracking their movements. Caliph's pulse quickened each time they found a new sign of the pursuit. She had learned to trust her instincts, and they were screaming at her that trouble was not far behind. What do you think it is? Caliph asked one evening as they set up camp again. She could feel the weight of his gaze on her, but she didn't turn to meet it. She didn't want him to see the worry in her eyes. Ethan squinted into the distance, his eyes scanning the surroundings as he worked. Someone's been following us for days, he said quietly. I don't think it's a wild animal. This feels like something more deliberate. Caliph's heart skipped a beat. My tribe, she muttered under her breath. She hadn't wanted to admit it, but it was the only explanation that made sense. Her people were relentless when it came to tracking down those who had been cast out. They would never leave her alone, not until they had finished what they started. They must be getting closer, she added, her voice tight with anxiety. I've known them my whole life. They won't stop until they find me. Ethan turned to face her fully, his expression softening. We'll deal with them. You don't have to face this alone. There was a firmness in his voice, a promise she hadn't realized she needed to hear. For a moment, Caliph allowed herself to believe that maybe Ethan could protect her. Maybe she didn't have to fight this battle alone. But deep down, she knew that no one could outrun her past forever. Her tribe was relentless. They wouldn't just let her go, not when they believed she was a threat to everything they stood for. She had been exiled for a reason. Her powers were too dangerous, and they wouldn't hesitate to eliminate her if they thought it was the only way to protect their people. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest. The fire flickered, casting a soft glow on their faces as they ate their meal in silence. Caliph's mind was racing, running through the possibilities of what might happen next. Could they outrun her tribe? Could they hide well enough to escape the pursuit? Or would it all end in a confrontation she wasn't ready for? As the night grew darker, she heard it, the faintest rustling sound coming from the trees. She froze, holding her breath, her senses sharpening. Ethan heard it too, his hand instinctively going to the weapon at his side. The sound grew louder, closer. It wasn't an animal this time. It was footsteps, deliberate and controlled, as if whoever was coming knew exactly where they were. "Get ready," Ethan whispered, his voice low but urgent. Caliph's heart pounded in her chest as she quickly gathered her things, preparing for the worst. She knew this moment had been coming for days, but now that it was here, she felt the weight of her fear pressing down on her. What would happen if they were caught? Would they be able to escape? Or would this be the end of their journey together? The footsteps stopped just beyond the clearing. Caliph's breath caught in her throat as she caught sight of movement between the trees. Shadows shifted, and then, from the darkness, figures began to emerge. Her heart sank when she saw them. Members of her tribe, their dark figures barely visible in the shadows. They moved with the precision of trained hunters, their eyes scanning the area as they searched for any sign of their quarry. Ethan gripped his weapon tighter, his eyes narrowing as he assessed the situation. "We need to move now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Caliph didn't hesitate. She knew that if they stayed here, they would be surrounded in minutes. But there was something else, something she hadn't told Ethan yet. Her powers, the very thing that had led to her exile. She had the ability to manipulate energy, to control it with her mind. It was a gift, but it was also a curse. She had been taught to hide it, to control it, but when she was threatened, it could explode in uncontrollable ways. Her tribe knew this, and they feared it. As they moved quickly through the forest, Caliph's mind raced. Could she use her powers to escape? Could she make it so her tribe couldn't track them? She didn't know if she was ready to reveal the full extent of her abilities to Ethan, but in this moment, it seemed like the only choice. "I'm going to try something," she said quietly, her voice shaky with uncertainty. "It might help us escape." Ethan glanced at her, his expression hardening. "What are you going to do?" "I can manipulate energy," she explained, her voice low but urgent. "I can cloak us, but I need to concentrate, and it might only last for a short time." Ethan nodded, his jaw clenched. "Do it." Caliph closed her eyes, focusing on the energy within her. She could feel the power pulsing through her veins, like a current running through the very air around her. It was a strange, almost intoxicating feeling, but it was also dangerous. She had never used this much of her power before, but the situation left her with no choice. She had to protect them. With a deep breath, Caliph reached out with her mind, pulling the energy around them, cloaking them from sight. She could feel the air around them shift, the world seeming to blur and fade. The energy she controlled hummed in the air, creating an invisible shield around them. Ethan's eyes widened as the world around them seemed to grow still, as if they had become a part of the shadows themselves. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it. A subtle shift in the atmosphere, a strange sense of calm that settled over them. The figures from her tribe walked past, so close that Caliph could hear their footsteps. But they didn't stop. They didn't seem to sense that anyone was nearby. The cloak was working. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief, but Caliph couldn't relax. She knew this wouldn't last long. Her powers were not infinite, and using them to cloak them would take its toll. "They've passed," Ethan whispered after a few moments. "We need to move quickly." Caliph nodded, but she could feel the drain on her energy already. Cloaking them had taken more out of her than she had expected. She needed to rest, but there was no time. Her tribe would regroup, and they would keep coming. "We need to find somewhere to hide," she said, her voice tight with exhaustion. "Somewhere they won't find us." Ethan led the way, moving through the forest with the precision of a soldier. Caliph followed closely behind, doing her best to keep up despite the weariness settling in her limbs. They couldn't stop now, not until they were safe. As they pushed forward, Caliph couldn't help but wonder how much longer they could keep running. How long could they evade her tribe before they were caught? And what would happen if they were finally cornered? The answers to those questions were unknown. But one thing was certain: Caliph couldn't escape her past forever. And one day, her tribe would catch up to her. The forest around them felt eerily quiet as Caliph and Ethan moved deeper into the thick trees. The evening sun had begun to set, casting long shadows over the ground. The air was heavy, as if it could sense the inevitable confrontation that was coming. Caliph could feel her pulse racing in her veins, her anxiety growing with every step. She had hoped for peace. She had hoped that maybe, just maybe, she could escape her past. But now, there was no denying it. The time had come to face her tribe. Ethan walked beside her, his eyes scanning the surroundings. He had been calm throughout their journey, never showing fear or hesitation, but Caliph could see the tension in his jaw. He was trying to stay strong for her, but she could tell that even he knew this was not going to be easy. "They'll be here soon," Caliph whispered, her voice tight with fear. "They never stop. They won't stop until they have me back, or until they've finished what they started." Ethan didn't reply right away. Instead, he continued walking, his hand resting lightly on the weapon strapped to his side. He was preparing for the worst, just as Caliph was. But this wasn't just about weapons. This was about survival. Her people were not only skilled in combat, but also in strategy and manipulation. They would use everything at their disposal to bring her back, and they would stop at nothing to ensure that no one helped her. "They won't stop until they've caught me," Caliph continued, more to herself than to Ethan. Her thoughts raced. Her mind kept going back to the day she had been exiled. She remembered the harsh words of her elders, the cold faces of her tribe. They had told her that her powers were too dangerous, that she posed a threat to their way of life. But they didn't understand. They didn't understand that she never wanted to hurt anyone. She had only wanted to survive, to be free. But to them, her very existence was a threat. Ethan finally broke the silence. "We'll make it through this. You're not alone anymore, Caliph." She glanced at him, grateful for his support, but the fear still clung to her chest, like a heavy weight. "I don't know if I can fight them, Ethan. They're part of me. I know their ways. I know how they think. And I fear that what they want is more than just my capture. They'll do anything to make sure I never return." The truth of her words hung heavily in the air, but before Ethan could respond, the sound of footsteps reached their ears, footsteps that were unmistakably close. Caliph's heart skipped a beat. They were here. Her tribe had arrived. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He gestured for Caliph to stay low, and together they ducked behind the thick underbrush, their breathing shallow. Caliph's heart pounded in her chest as she peered through the leaves, her eyes locking onto the figures moving into the clearing ahead. The silhouettes of her people appeared like shadows in the fading light, their tall, imposing figures unmistakable. There were 5 of them, elite members of her tribe, the warriors who had been sent to bring her back. The air around them felt charged with energy. Caliph could feel the power of their presence, the unrelenting force of their will. These were the people who had cast her out, and now they were coming for her. She gripped her chest, trying to steady her breath. The fear in her body was overwhelming, but she couldn't let it control her. She couldn't let them see her weakness. "Stay here," Ethan whispered, his voice low and firm. "I'll distract them."